Okay, so base materials. What I mean by that, I like to make some quick materials and then go through the process of setting up the material assignments, and then I come back and bring the textures in and apply all the different maps and things like that. So that's how we're going to work today. So firstly, I'm going to create a DLS, a DL shading node. So this is the 3 to light node, which gives you access, it's like an Uber node that gives you access to all of the different utility and shader and math nodes that are required for the look dev portion of 3 to light. So making material networks inside of 3 to light's interface. And then we have a thing called a network material, which is like the interface for Katana. So it converts how 3 to light or Arnold or RenderMan, there's a PRMan shading node, there's an AL shading node for Arnold, all that sort of stuff. But it converts the language that the third-party renderer is talking in to a Katana-like language. It's sort of a way to think of a network material, like a port into Katana's node graph, maybe is another way. So on the network material, hit add terminal and you go DL surface. So that gives me a DL surface input. And you might have noticed here you can also do displacement as well. And that gives me another one. So Maya users might think of this like the shading group sort of in a way. So anyway, enough about that. So what we do with the shading node is we can convert it with this big list here. This could be a cloth node for 2D procedural cloth, or it could be a contrast node. You know, it converts it. So the idea is you choose the node you want. We're going for a DL 3 to light material, the standard sort of material for 3 to light. We're going to give it a name. This is going to be my chameleon map. And then I've got the, if you click on the little arrow, it gives me a list of outputs, and I just want the top one, out color. Get this connection arrow into DL surface. So we'll deal with displacement later, but we'll leave it there for now. If you want to delete a port, you can right click on it and delete port. So this is my network material for the chameleon material, so I call it chameleon NM. And then I disconnect the network material into the merge, and that feeds it down into the graph. And you'll see now we have chameleon network material, which has a basic DL 3 to light material feeding into it. So what I can do with that, this is very similar to shading in many other 3D renderers. It's really good. We can choose colors, roughness, surface. So I'm not going to go through the whole shader, but I will be tweaking it as we're going through. This is more about the workflow, I guess, and an introduction to sort of the steps you go through in Katana as opposed to a physically based shading tutorial. I'll try not to get too hung up on just the straight shader sort of stuff, because I'm sure a lot of you have done this sort of stuff before, just not in Katana perhaps. So my chameleon material is in the graph. It is feeding this stuff in, but you'll see here that it's not actually feeding any color through because we haven't assigned the material. So we'll do that next. I'm just going to duplicate these. Sorry, control paste, copy paste, and I'm going to call this accessories, accessory material, accessory network material. I'll give it a different default color so I know it's working later. And then we'll do another DLS, place that down, edit, and this one I'm going to choose a different shader. I'm going to do a DL metal. You'll see here in all the DLs there's a list of all different types of default pre-made shader models or whatever we call them. So the metal was quite nice. It gives a pretty good base result. So let's call this metal base map. Grab another network material. So with some of these techniques that I'm doing, I will be going through some of these topics rather fast. If if you miss certain bits on this, know that I've got a whole Katana training video. It's like 12 or 13 videos or something on the Intraware YouTube channel. So it's an introduction to working in Katana. So feel free to go back through that for a detailed sort of step through of how to work in the node graph and things like that. So I've got 3 materials in the scene. They've come in. I can see them in the scene graph, and I'm viewing the graph from the bottom. So I know these materials are going to make it through to the render because I can see it here. If I was to double click like here, you'll see that I can only see stuff that is upwards in the graph. So how Katana works, you set the endpoint dynamically, and the whole scene graph is assembled at that point. So I like to keep it down the bottom for the most part.